All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are now going to talk about another great game from this weekend, and that is the Green Bay Packers and the San Francisco 49ers game. The 49ers narrowly defeating the Packers 24 to 21. And I had the 49ers winning, but I thought it was going to be one of those games where it was going to be close for a little bit, and then the 49ers were eventually going to pull away. And that never happened. The 49ers had to come back in this game. And like I said, great game. Also, Deebo Samuel left this game very early with a shoulder injury, and his status is up in the air for the NFC Championship game. So that's something to keep an eye on. And the 49ers definitely missed him. Um, both quarterbacks in this game, I mean, it was ugly. They made some good throws, but they also missed some throws. And some throws should have got intercepted. For Jordan Love, he threw a couple of picks. Brock Purdy didn't have any picks in this game, but he definitely should have had at least one because Darnell Savage dropped an interception, and he had a pick six against Dallas last week. He could have had a pick six here. But let's go through the game summary. So the Packers, they went right down the field just like they did against the Cowboys. 14 plays, 58 yards, 7 minutes, 38 seconds of time of possession down the field. But instead of getting a touchdown, they had to settle for a Carlson field goal. So that put them up 3-0. The Niners punted, then the Packers turned it over on downs. They went for this was set up by a 38-yard reception by Romeo Doubs. But yeah, so it was 4th and 1, and the refs in this game, bad spots with where they were placing the ball, and this was one of them because it looked like Jordan Love actually may have gotten closer, and they didn't put it as closer as I thought it should have been to the first down marker. But yeah, the Packers they ended up turning it over on downs. Niners turned that into a touchdown. That was a touchdown to George Kittle for 32 yards. So that put the Niners up 7-3. Then the Packers answered with a field goal, and then the Niners, Mooney got his kick blocked. So it was 7-6 49ers at the half. So this was still a ball game. Then the Niners punted to open up the second half. Packers answered with a touchdown drive, 9 plays, 75 yards, 4 minutes of time of possession. And Jordan Love connected with Bo Melton for a 19-yard touchdown. We talk about Kelsey being wide open, Melton wide open. But the 49ers defensive back did slip. So that's why Melton was so wide open. But yeah, so that put the Packers up 13-7. And then the 49ers answered with a touchdown drive. That was set up by George Kittle, 32-yard reception. Christian McCaffrey scored a rushing touchdown, 39-yard rushing touchdown, so that put them up 14-13. And then on the next drive, Keyshawn Nixon runs it back for 73 yards. Then he fumbles, but the Packers, thankfully, they jumped on it. They got the ball back. Then a 15-yard reception by Romeo Doubs, 3-yard run by Aaron Jones, and then Jordan Love connected with Tucker Kraft for a 2-yard touchdown. And then they would go for the 2, and they got it. Jordan Love connects with Aaron Jones for the 2-point conversion. So the Packers are up by 7 in this game. And then the 49ers punted on their next drive. Then Jordan Love throws an interception, and that was to Dre Greenlaw. Niners then get a field goal out of that. That was Jake Moody from 52 yards. So the Packers still had the lead. Then they punted. The Niners punted again. And then the Packers missed a field goal. Carlson misses a 41-yard field goal. And this was set up, a 53-yard run by Aaron Jones. And I think this game might be over. I thought the Packers were going to, score again. And, Carlson ends up missing the field goal. And then the Niners get it back. Christian McCaffrey finishes off that drive with a 6-yard touchdown. And that puts him up 24-21. Jordan Love has an opportunity to get the ball back. And they do pick up a first down, but then, and Jordan Love, listen, he's been playing great football as of late, but he kind of reverted back to what he was doing earlier in the season. He was rolling out, threw across his body into the middle of the field, trying to hit Christian Watson, but Dre Greenlaw picked that up. He returned it for 18 yards. He actually didn't go down. He just kept running with it. And the Packers were trying to knock it out. But yeah, so that was the game-sealing interception. And the The Niners ended up winning that game, narrowly defeating the Packers, as I titled the segment. And they move on to the NFC Championship game for the third year in a row. And to look at the stats for the game, Jordan Love went 21 to 34, 194 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Again, had his moments. Both quarterbacks had their moments, their good moments and their bad moments. And Jordan Love, the second pick, that was bad. And then Aaron Jones had a good game, another 100-yard rushing performance, which I didn't think was going to happen. But the Packers did run the ball well in this game. I was surprised by that. A big chunk of Aaron Jones' yards were, the 53-yard run. But still, it was a good game for him. Romeo Doubs, leading receiver, 4 receptions for 83 yards. Boat Melton had 1 reception for 19 yards. That was for the touchdown. Tucker Kraft had a touchdown. Jaden Reed had 4 for 35. The Packers had 1 sack in the game. And then on the other side, the 49ers, Brock Purdy, 23 of 39, 252 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Christian McCaffrey, 17 carries, 98 yards, and 2 touchdowns. George Kittle was the leading receiver, 4 receptions for 81 yards and a touchdown. Juwan Jennings had 5 for 61. Ayuk had 3 for 32. McCaffrey had 7 for 30. Dre Greenlaw, 2 picks in the game. No sacks for the Niners in the game. But yeah, it was a very good game. But listen, the Niners, if they're going to want to go to the Super Bowl, they cannot play like that because they struggled throughout that game. And listen, Brock Purdy put together a great game-winning drive at the end of the game, but if they want to win this, if they want to get to the Super Bowl and win it, they cannot play like they did against the Packers. I thought the Packers did a great job. Their defense played really well. And their offensive line as well. I mean, that held up. And I said, listen, you give Jordan Love time to throw, the Packers are going to be able to move the ball. And they did. Although, he passed for 194 yards, 2 picks. But, the Packers, they had the 49ers. I mean, they had their opportunities. And it's just unfortunate that their season came down to, their kicker not being able to. Because then the game would have been tied at the end of the game. And they really had him. I really did think, when Aaron Jones had that 53-yard run, I thought that was it. I thought maybe the game was going to be over, but then they didn't get any points out of it. I just didn't want that game to end because that game was really good. But yeah, it's just same story, different year with the Packers and the 49ers. The 49ers again beat the Packers in the playoffs. Although the Packers played really well. The defense again, I mean, they played better than I expected. Even though McCaffrey had a big run for the touchdown in this game, but again, the 49ers have so many weapons that it's hard to stop them. But the Packers did good enough where they should have won this game. But ultimately they fall a little bit short. But you know what? I mean, credit to them for getting this far. They got a bright future, the youngest team in the NFL. They're just getting started. A couple of things. I mean, obviously Jordan Love throwing the pick at the end, and that was something that he was doing a lot, like against the Broncos, against the Raiders, against the Steelers. Throwing game-ending interceptions. That's something he's going to have to work on. Is you got to try not to force everything. Which I think they will. They'll correct that. And the Packers, they have their quarterback moving forward. This team is going to be good. You would think for a long time with how young they are. Again, they're just getting started. The fact they were way ahead of schedule here, and they got to the divisional round and they had the number one. They were the 7th seed. They had the number 1 seed on the ropes. It just credit to them. Credit to Matt LaFleur because I criticized him. I wasn't really a Matt LaFleur believer. But the fact that this team had a roller coaster of a season and they were able to keep it together and make the playoffs and get this far and almost beat the 49ers. There's also credit to the coaching staff as well. So I give him a lot of credit. Jordan Love, I mean, he really turned it on after, again, the GM for the Packers spoke out like this is going to be, how we, evaluate Jordan Love is, this, second half of the season, and he delivered. Credit to him as well. I'll give Joe Barry credit. Now, I know Packers fans probably don't want to hear that because the Packers defense at some points has been awful. But, these two games against the Cowboys and against the 49ers, defense did its job. So, I mean, we'll see if he comes back next year. But the Packers, they got a lot to be happy about. But obviously, the way they lost, you don't want to lose that way. Again, they had the number 1 seed on the ropes, and they couldn't get it done. But very good game. It was, again, one of the best games of the weekend. I mean, again, 3 of the 4 games were great. It's just, the Ravens-Texans game, not so much. But, yeah, so the 49ers, they advance. They will be taking on the Detroit Lions, who we will be talking about shortly. But, again, got to see if Deebo Samuel is going to be healthy for this game. Because if he's not, again, we saw and how the 49ers are playing in this game, it just brought me back to that, 3-game stretch where they didn't have Deebo. And the offense was at times struggling. Again, Brock Purdy, got lucky he didn't throw an interception in this game because there were a couple times he should have. Also, again, missed penalties in this game. I mean, you had him just throwing a pass out of bounds. No receiver in the area, and they didn't call intentional grounding on that. And I think that's what set up the McCaffrey touchdown. So, again, the officiating. It's going to be bad, but they got to do something about it. But yeah, again, just another missed flag there. Because then again, that set up the McCaffrey touchdown. But yeah, it just it's a heartbreaker for the Packers. Niners, again, you can't play like that next week. You just can't. If they want to win the Super Bowl, they gotta figure it out. And maybe it's because they were rusty from being off, for a couple weeks. I mean, they didn't play most of their starters in week 18, and then of course you have the bye, so maybe there's that. I mean, even the Ravens, like, they started off a little bit slow in their game, but then obviously they turned it up. So maybe it's because of that. But again, you go back to that 3-game stretch where they didn't have Deebo Samuel and they were a completely different team. And Brock Purdy was turning the ball over. Didn't turn the ball over in this game, but almost did. But again, they won. It was a nail biter, but credit to them for getting the win. And yeah, they will be hosting the NFC Championship. So this is the 3rd year in a row they're making it. But the last 2 years they had to go to Philly, they had to go to LA. I mean, well, even though there were a bunch of 49ers fans there for that NFC Championship game, but now that this time it's at home, so that's good. So we'll see what happens when they take on the Lions, who we'll talk about in a second. So before we go to break, again, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we will recap the Lions-Buccaneers game, which again was a great game, and the Lions advance to the NFC Championship to take on the Niners. So we will talk about that when we return from our second break of the show. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.